Namaste. Welcome to Wise Out Career Guide. Today we have Mr. Akshay Tyagi with us, who started his journey in the field of engineering and slowly moved into sales. Let's hear from him, his journey, and how he moved about his switches. Welcome, Akshay.
Hi, thanks Neha for having me.
So, Akshay, what has been your educational background?
So I started off my career in computer science. I mean, that was my bachelor's. I went on to do my master's from University of Leicester, UK, in embedded systems and control. Then, after having the internship in UK, I came back to India. I started off my career with one of the largest OEMs in the world, that is Samsung.
Okay,
Post which I did a stint with um, a chip manufacturer, and at least the IP, that is ARM, and in
okay,
Bangalore. And post which I came back to NCR, where I
mhm,
joined my present company, which is an IT services and solutions company. We are
okay,
headquartered in US, but major development
mhm,
centers are in India. So Gurgaon is the hub, and then we have
okay,
other centers in Bangalore and Noida and other places.
okay. So, Akshay, after you finished your master's, a lot of people prefer taking a job abroad only. Why did you decide to, come back to India?
A couple of reasons. I
Hmm.
had a job offer in UK as well, but
Okay.
the kind of options that were there in India at that point of time were
Hmm.
much better. So, for example, I was able to get into a brand such as Samsung when I got back, and that's who I started
Right.
off my career with. While it was more of a startup in UK. Now, at that point of time, I know startups are a buzz right now, and everybody is gung ho about joining them. But at that point of time, you still wanted to start off your career with a with a brand, and that was
Brand.
my prime motivation for. I was weighing the options, and that was my prime motivation
Mhm.
for coming back here and starting with Samsung.
So, what was that first job like with Samsung? How was it different from what you imagined to the reality of that first month?
um, Honestly, I mean, there's a difference between you're starting off your job after, probably after bachelor's and after master's. Masters kind of prepares you slightly better. There's a lot of grilling which happens in masters. So when I started off my professional career, um, eh, you know, you're obviously, enthusiastic. You're trying to prove yourself, and you're trying to
Right.
learn as well at the same time. So even though I'd imagined it to be uh, probably working on some other technologies, in the sense that I was thinking of that I would probably work in X, and the work that
Mhm.
I got started off was Y.
Okay.
So what you realize over a period of time was that you will not always get the work that of your choice all the time,
Mhm.
but
Right.
it is about whatever that you're presented with, trying
Mhm.
to learn, and that will always help you in the long run. Because
Okay.
those are projects, or those are uh, technical skills that you're acquiring. So
Mhm.
for anybody who's starting out, and I know a lot of people, when they say that I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, it's
Mhm.
probably better, at least in the initial few years of your careers, to do everything that you possibly can. Because you might
Okay.
start off by saying that I would not like this, I will not like this, but when you're actually working on company projects, that notion might change.
Okay. So, why the switch to sales, Akshay?
I've been doing reasonably well, very well
Mhm.
in engineering, but engineering is a different mindset. Engineering is all
Okay.
about execution. What I was also looking at, and especially when you're working on developing products,
Right.
you have visibility of, again, very one part of the chain. Imagine
Absolutely.
this: if you're a company who's making, let's say, something like an Alexa,
Mm-hmm.
engineering would be involved in product development or feature development,
Okay.
but the business development part, or let's say the product development part, that would involve the complete life cycle of the product.
Okay.
So while being in the solutions and services company, while I had um, a visibility on the execution side, the project side, but I wanted to kind of get a bigger picture. That
Okay.
is why that was my main motivation of moving into business development. And business development or sales is a very different mindset altogether. You know,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, with the switch, was it, learning from the beginning, or, how was the experience coming from completely technical background to now, maybe a 20% technical knowledge is required and
Probably
more of
higher,
people
probably
skill?
higher, depending on
Okay.
what you're selling. For
Hmm.
so somebody who's it depends on what you're selling. Honestly, I
All
mean,
right.
so for me, probably the amount of technical knowledge is slightly on the higher side. But
Mm-hmm.
it's more of shifting from one thing to the other. It's unlearning a lot of things and learning new ones.
Right.
And
Right.
even more than that, it's the way you look at things. When you are talking to somebody, or when you are, let's say, discussing the what. So for example, right now, let's say if you are looking at a product, when an
Mm-hmm.
engineering guy looks at the product, the kind of questions that might come into his mind are like, how is it made, how long will it does it take to make this thing, what's the complexity, is it possible to make this or not. um,
Right.
if you're a business development guy, the kind of questions would be different. Like, who do you sell it to? Is this thing
Right.
sellable? um, is the pricing right? So it's a completely different mindset altogether.
Okay. So, Akshay, when we talk about people working in IT industries, in sales and business development, what are the kind of educational background that the companies look at when hiring freshers
uh, for business development or for engineering? For business development, right?
for business development? Yeah.
So typically, what we would look at is somebody who has an MBA,
Okay.
and then probably 2 3 years work experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, what I have seen when I have gone out to campuses for recruitment, or like picking up people for internship, um, mostly the people who are coming in from colleges and trying to apply for business development roles, they don't often have prior experience in business development,
Right.
right? Now, what you would expect, but a lot of people say that they want to do business development. So what I would typically recommend uh, to everybody is that if you're there's plenty of material available online and otherwise. There's no dearth of it now.
Mm-hmm.
20
Right.
years back, it was about getting a book. Right now, it's about just Googling online and trying to see what it is. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you're looking at getting into business development for, let's say, an IT company, then
Mm-hmm.
at least on the sales, the marketing side, etc., at least your preparation should be good enough.
Okay.
You know, that might also come from talking to your peers, your seniors, or just
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's probably like doing it already.
Okay.
LinkedIn is a good forum. If you reach out to 20 odd people saying that I am so and so, just wanna like get 5 minutes from you for guidance, I'm sure out of
Mm-hmm.
10 people at least one would respond with, yeah, would be happy to do that. So
Right.
that's what I would encourage people who are starting off to do.
Okay. So, Akshay, you've had the engineering side of the background. You've seen how things work there, and you've done business development as well. Uh, if I were to ask you, what are the kind of soft skills that are required for, a job in engineering or a job in business development that the companies look for in candidates? Educational background, yes, but now companies look at soft skills also of a person. So, what are those kind of soft skills that are, companies looking for?
See, in both the things, I think business ethics, right? And a
Hmm.
lot of things which are just pure common sense. Uh, a
Okay.
simple example being if you're trying to follow up with somebody for a meeting, right?
Hmm.
How do you do that? Do you, let's say, call them up, 20 times within an hour and
Right.
bombard them with messages, or do you just drop a message and wait for them to respond back? Or let's say if you have been given a task, how diligently are you completing that task is one thing. If you're stuck,
Hmm.
what you're doing with it? Are you coming back and asking for help? Are you informing whoever has allocated you that particular task, that that this is where I am, or this is what I've completed? So it's about ownership, right?
Okay.
And i- it's a mix of both, right? So when you're working, it's just about doing the work. It's never kind of a 9 to 5 kind of a thing, because
Absolutely.
it's just about work which needs to be completed wherever you are able to kind of maneuver and find time. And
Hmm.
it's not only about working hard, but it's about working smartly.
Okay. So, Akshay, from engineering to business development, what is that one tip that you would like to share with freshers for them to be able to make a successful career in the corporate world?
Be honest to yourself. I mean,
Okay.
and work hard. It, at least the first 2 3 years of
Hmm.
your career, or even otherwise, I am still learning. Anything which is new, and anything which is new is always going to be exciting. It's going to take time. It always does,
Right.
right? When you're doing something for the first time, it always takes longer. But
Hmm.
that thrill of acquiring a skill or acquiring a knowledge or having done something for the first time will always
Hmm.
be there. So
Absolutely.
be honest with yourself and with whatever you're doing, and I'm sure you'll succeed.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Akshay, and sharing your journey. Thank you.
Thanks, Neha, for having me.
That was Mr. Akshat Tyagi sharing with us his corporate journey. And what he said that, as long as you're honest with your own self and putting in the work that is required to achieve any task, it doesn't matter how big or small it is. If you're putting in the work, then there is, success at the end of it. Previously, we've had videos with Mr. Sudarshan Banerjee and Ms. Nidhi Srivastav where they made a complete switch of the industry. But here with this interview, what we've seen and learned is that you can make a complete shift in terms of the departments that you're working in from a very technical background, working on the product development, which is very technical in nature, to sales, which requires you to see the bigger picture, incorporate a lot more aspects than just product development into your way of thinking is possible if and only if you're ready to learn, you're ready to put in the hard work, and you're being honest of where you're failing and what you need to learn more. I hope this video helps you understand how and where you can join or make switches in terms of your career. If you have any questions, do write to us in the comments below and we will get back to you. Also, do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thank you.